Hi. Here I am. Ah, took a second. Had to get the coffee ready. Some mornings just don't go as smoothly as other mornings. You gotta adapt. And no offense, I don't want to get up earlier than I do to make sure that those mornings don't happen. I wake up at 5:45. I don't want to get up at 5:30 or even 5:40. Honestly, it would probably need to be 5:30. You know that thing where tasks expand to the time available? Yeah, I would need 15 minutes to make sure that they don't. And that last 15 minutes of sleep is the most valuable. That's the one that, right? That's why we have snooze bars. I don't hit the snooze bar. I like the snooze bar. I use one of those alarm clocks that has the wake up light, and that starts at 5:15. And I turn off the light and go back to bed until 5:45. And this cat right here, you, tried to wake me up at 3:45 this morning, which I rejected, and she promptly came out, ate one of my plants, and then threw up in the hallway. She did it intentionally. She knows exactly what she was doing. You're a brat. I hope you've had a better morning. Good. Don't sit behind me. That doesn't work. Cat tail. Get out of there. Yesterday was a pretty good day. This has been a really good week in that I've been better about what needs to get done and what doesn't need to get done, and giving myself some space to just relax. That's been really helpful, really important. Yesterday I went for an acupuncture session, which was awesome. My first one in months. Really, really helped. And what are you doing? Did some errands, returned some things, tried to buy some things. And what do we do? Worked on a bunch of stuff. Oh, it's Thursday, so we have an episode. What episode of Martial Arts Radio is out today, Zuza? Do you know? I'll still contend you're a terrible co-host. It's not going to be First Cup with Jeremy and Zuza. You don't contribute. This is me petting the cat. That's how close she is to the camera. Oh, I didn't say it. Today is Thursday, June 18th. Oh, episode 511 is out today. It's the rebroadcast of Martial Arts Radio Live, which is the... Where are you going? I'm sitting on the TV remote. Sit down. Come on. If anyone has a cat that you understand, this is how this works. You need to sit. I'm trying to do a show. There we go. Okay. If I think back to the first episode of Live and where it's at now, it's come a long way, and I'm really happy with how far it's come. It's a much better show, and I would say at least 80% is owed to Gabe and all that he does. somebody wrote to me with an idea, and I'm not going to flesh out the idea fully, but it requires a new division if we're going to do it. And it was funny. This person is already working on another project for Whistlekick, and they apparently they're suffering from the same curse I do of having all of these ideas. And he wrote me and he said, "I've got this idea, and I know I have stuff to do, and I know you have too much to do, and here's this idea." And he went into detail explaining a martial arts board game. And then I thought of I thought of several other martial arts board games that we could do, adaptations of existing ones. And I know there are companies that will make board games. And so what do we need? We need somebody to run that. So if anybody out there loves board games and you want to be in charge of the board game division and split the profit 50-50, because that's how we do it, you let me know. I don't think I'm putting enough coffee grounds in this. I don't know how I'm not, but I'm not. There's something I'm doing wrong. It's not as good as it should be. Maybe I gotta go 2 full tablespoons of coffee. What's going on today? I have to fight with the bank. So I don't know about you, but a lot of the bills that I owe money on. Debts. Those are the things. Man, my brain. I went to bed at a reasonable hour too. A lot of bills, a lot of debts have been kicked down the road because of COVID. And I got a bill from one of them yesterday through the bank saying, "Here's this insane amount you owe." Basically, they just didn't bill me earlier, and they billed me all at once for what they didn't bill me, which is counterproductive. It's just dumb. So now I have to go to the bank and say, "Hey, that's not going to work for me." Remember when I used to sell stuff on Amazon? That barely happens now. Help. And we'll see what they say. Otherwise, I might be selling a cat. Anybody want to buy a cat? I'm just kidding when I say that. Oh, I'm afraid it's going to be a weird day. It just has a weird vibe in the air. It's going to be 90 degrees again. I managed to get the house cooled down to about 65 last night with windows open. It's 50 out right now, which gives you an idea of how stable the temperature stays in here, which is a good thing through the winter for sure. And considering winter is 9 months and summer is 3 here, I think that's the way I want that set. Yeah. Got an appointment with my massage therapist. This shoulder's doing screwy things. What else happening? Client meeting later today. A bunch of little stuff. Going to the bank. Client work. Whistlekick work. Working more on the strength. I keep calling it strength and conditioning program. Probably because it took so long to get the one rolled out. The fight conditioning program. I spent a little bit of time with that yesterday. Figured out my next step for it, and I'm taking that next step today. I'm going to start working on some of the programs, the actual what people would do, and see where that takes me. I have no idea when that one's coming out. My hope is by the end of the month. I'm getting better at these. The more of them I do, the easier it becomes. I'm hopeful that this one goes. I mean, viral is such an overused word, but that's what I'm hopeful for. Because it'll work. It's going to be a better version of what people are doing. People just don't understand conditioning. They miss. There's layers to it. They misunderstand that. Because they don't read the science, because most of the time, people training them, aren't up on the science. And they do what they did 40 years ago. There's a huge mat on your belly. It's almost gone. Anything else going on? No. Hopefully my shoulder will be better. And hopefully it won't be it's going to be too hot. 90 degrees is too hot. My upper limit If I had a thermostat that I could control, the days that I was inside would be 70. The days where I was outside hanging out, doing stuff would be probably 75 to 80. If it was a day I was going to the beach or doing stuff in the water, probably be 85. It's probably as high as I would make it. This 90, 95 stuff, and some of you in the country that deal with 110 degree stuff, blech, gross. It's gross. I would never turn the dial up that high. But then through winter, I would I would set it to like 25. That'd be as low as it would go. Just enough to make and hold snow. For all my friends that ski and snowboard and sled. I feel like I'm being very rambly, so I'm just going to flip into questions. Let's see what you all wrote in. Here's YouTube recommending a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't apply to me. Good job, YouTube. Last Tuesday, June 16th, would have been Tupac Shakur's 49th birthday. Yes. Now, if you follow me on Facebook, I think I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this yesterday. Yeah, that I posted something. Oh, Frank, you picked some great ones. Apologies in advance if I tear up through these. Here's a real moment for you. For those of you who don't know, I grew up without a father. I know who my father was. He was part of my life until I was about 8, and then not again until I was 18. And then 10 years after that, he moved to Ireland. I've seen him once in the last 13 years. So, whether it was intentional or not, my mother did a pretty good job of exposing me to some strong male role models. Some were kind of like older brother figures. Some were father figures. I had some decent role models. But one of them, one of the strongest male voices in my head as a kid, was Tupac through his music. I found rap music when I was probably 12, and it resonated for me. And Tupac's music the most because of I started with the second album. That was the first one I had, and it was if I was to put that album on now, I could probably recite darn close to every word to every song. So that gives you an idea. The first quote Frank has here is from one of his songs. June 16th, 1971. Mama gave birth to a hell-raising, heavenly son. The other 4 quotes are not from his music. So I think it's important to mention that in his music, you see some very, very conflicting themes. You see advocacy for women, as well as lyrics that are just brutally misogynistic. You see political messaging as well as violence. I can't promise to understand why there's so much conflict in his music. I've watched so many documentaries, read so many things. I have a pretty good idea of what other people believe, and my beliefs are fairly similar. He was a complex person. he had two sides to him. Most of us have more than one side. The cliche Gemini, of which I am. My birthday is a week before Tupac's. We're both Geminis. If you look at the Gemini in astrology, there's duality there. There are two sides. And I'm very aware of the different facets of my personality. I don't know if he was. He definitely started out more political and became more aggressive as he got older. You might even say more militant. And I will say that if he were alive today, he would be all over the news. He is one celebrity that he wouldn't have been on Twitter. He would have been at the protests. He would have been causing trouble. He would have been going to jail. Remember, this is a man who defended another man and shot two cops. He gave no... He did what he saw was right. And he was incredibly committed to that. And it's something that really clicked for me. Next. Come on, load. I need more coffee. You never stop loving someone. You learn to live without them. And I mean, that's a pretty generic quote, so it doesn't stick in my head as to where that's from. But something that's really interesting, a lot of people don't realize, before Jada Pinkett married Will Smith, she was really close with Tupac, and they were young. This was when he was in acting school in Baltimore, and she was there. That's where she started out, and they remained close. And Will was always threatened by him. So I think that's funny. So that quote might actually be about her. Life's a test. Mistakes are lessons, but the gift of life is knowing that you have made a difference. I mean, that could be the mantra for every martial arts instructor, right? If you've spent time teaching, you've messed up. There are things you could have done differently, better. You've lost your temper with a child in the kids' class, or your lesson plan fell apart, or you realized at testing that something that you thought people knew they don't know. Right? There are 1,001 ways. We all mess up every day. But you learn from those lessons. That's the key. It's how human beings learn. We learn by making mistakes. We learn to walk by falling down a lot. This of the four quotes, non-musical quotes, Frank chose, this one's probably the most famous. Everybody's at war with different things. I'm at war with my own heart sometimes. I think that's something we can relate. Most of us can relate to. What our head wants and what our heart wants, or gut, however you want to think of it. The inner conflict as to what to do, how to do, who to be. That's something that we all experience from time to time. And there's no right answer. There's no promise that you'll get it right. There's no certainty in any of it. Except in hindsight. You can look back and say, oh, I bet that would have been a better choice, given the circumstances and what I know now. I've made a lot of mistakes. If I could go back in time and restart Whistlekick with what I know now, I never would have borrowed a dime. Wouldn't have needed to. I know exactly what we could have done. But you learn as you go. You learn by making mistakes, and hopefully you're willing to take those lessons. Because if you don't, you'll repeat the mistakes. And mistakes are expensive. They cost you time or money or friendships or relationships or some other opportunity. Do what you can with what you have where you're at. One more. And this one, is the last one, probably sums up him. It sums him up as perfectly as I think any handful of words could. I'm not perfect, but I'll always be real. When we talk about authenticity, it would have been interesting to see how he fared today with, quote unquote, cancel culture. Because there would have been 10,000 things people could have pointed at and said, you were wrong, you were wrong, you were wrong. And I think on a number of them we would have said, you're right, I messed up, I learned, I grew. Some of them the rest he would have defended. If you have any interest in learning more about him, the fictionalized movie All Eyes on Me does a really good job of telling his story. There are some very slight changes, but more so, it captures his personality. If you want the easiest way to understand who he was as a person, that's it. Yeah, that's probably the best way. And of course, there are tons of movies that he acted in. Juice, Poetic Justice, Gridlocked. Yeah, I think there was 4. Can't remember one right now. That's okay. In today's episode of First Cup About Tupac with Jeremy, it's a subject I could talk about for a long time. I'm not going to expose myself, but for those of you, if you know much about him, you know that his very first tattoo over his chest was his name, but with the numeral 2. When he started rapping, and I have that tattoo. It was not my first one, it was my second one. Right? Yeah. So if that gives you any idea of the importance he's held in my life. There it is. Alright, I'm gonna go. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for listening to me talk about a subject that's really important to me. And I hope that you can see how what we talked about today can tie into martial arts, because it's life. Martial arts is life. Martial arts provides tools for life. If you have a question, a comment, a follow-up, anything for tomorrow or into the future, just drop it below. I'll respond tomorrow. That's how this show works. If you want to support this show and the other things that we do at Whistlekick, Martial Arts Radio and Live and Martial Journal and you name it, there's a ton we do. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/whistlekick, and make a contribution. Or you can buy something. Whistlekick.com. Use the code FIRSTCUP15. You get 15% off. Lets me know that you watch this show and you get something and you help us out. Everybody wins. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe and you turn on notifications, because we do it every weekday at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. And if you haven't, subscribe to the podcast version of this, because we make like half a cent every time you download it. So you can just subscribe and just leave it alone. And if you all do that, we'll make a couple dollars. Yay! It all helps. Every little bit helps. Thanks for your time. I hope you have a great day. I hope wherever you are, it's not going to be grossly hot like here. And I'll see you back here tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Peace.